Welcome, everybody. My name is Jill Hennessy and I am a Vice-Chancellor's Professorial Fellow at Monash University, and I'm also the Chair of the Monash Women's Health Alliance. I'm very proud to have served in the Government of Victoria as an Attorney General and as a Minister for Health, and I have the great pleasure today as your Master of Ceremonies for the official opening of the 2024 World Health Summit Regional Meeting. Before we begin, on behalf of my Monash colleagues, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Naarm, the peoples of the Kulin Nations, on whose country we gather for this event. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to the elders of all First Nations communities that are joining us here today. We undertake to walk together with respect with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, communities and organisations in a shared journey to better health. We recognise the ancient and diverse cultures of Australia's Indigenous peoples and strive to consider and put them in front in our quest for health equity for all. We would also like to extend our acknowledgement to all First Nations people and recognise their unique, crucial and enduring contributions to societies all over the world. I have a piece of housekeeping now, and I hope you're going to take this the right way. Please turn off your phones. And it's a joy, and enjoy it. We want your experience this morning to be one where you can relax. Because this is an important and auspicious occasion, but it is also an occasion of warmth and connection. The first Asia-Pacific regional meeting of the World Health Summit, and only the second to be held in the Southern Hemisphere. Over 1,200 people have come together for this event, joining us from 45 nations across the Asia-Pacific and around the world. And it is a great honour for me to stand here today with such an extraordinary assembly of health leaders and advocates, people who have changed the world for good and who continue to inspire and support us all to do the same. There will be many opportunities throughout this ceremony to officially acknowledge and thank our many distinguished guests, but I would just like to give a special mention to a number of our special guests that are here with us today. We have a range of important people, and this is an important opportunity. We will be having an opportunity to have a wonderful welcome to country shortly. But before we do, can I please acknowledge some of our wonderful international leaders? We have Dr. Say Pakula, our new Regional Director of the World Health Organization Western Pacific Office. And he has taken time to be with us here today in his first 100 days of office. We have an official delegation from Fiji, headed by the Minister for Health and Medical Services, the Honourable Ratu Antonio Labulula, and his Permanent Secretary, Dr. Chemisei Tuvalu. We have senior government representatives from Singapore, Tonga and the Solomon Islands, and we have strong representatives from colleagues from New Zealand, including senior Māori leaders in health and policy. We have the Right Honourable Helen Clark with us, and Helen needs no introduction in this forum. She is one of the most respected and revered global health leaders of our times. Professor Ilona Kickbush is with us, and Ilona is widely credited with putting global health on the global agenda, leading reforms for the World Health Organization, numerous governments around the world, including here in Australia, and of course the World Health Summit. We are delighted to have Sir Michael Marmot back with us in Melbourne, who has dedicated his career to tackling health and social inequities right across the world. Sir Michael is still making his way to us this morning, but you will be able to catch him on stage here tomorrow. And on Wednesday, we will have World Health Organization Special Envoy, Dr. Aodi Alakicha, joining us. She has, of course, been at the forefront of challenging the extreme imbalance of power driving global and regional health inequities, and we're so fortunate to have her here in her role as World Health Summit Ambassador. The list of mentions goes on and on, but we have a meeting to open, and so it is now my great pleasure to ask Dr. Mandy Nicholson to the stage to perform the Welcome to Country and to lead a traditional smoking ceremony and dance performed by the Jiri Jiri. Dr. Mandy Nicholson is a Wurundjeri William artist, the founder, the singer and songwriter of Jiri Jiri Dance Group and traditional custodian of Melbourne and surrounds. She also has connections to Jaja Wurrong and Ngari William Allen, and she has great language group knowledge and exposure of the Central Eastern Kulin Nation and also of German on her mother's side. Mandy has a Bachelor of Arts honours in Aboriginal archaeology and is a Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung language expert. She is also a cultural mentor to young Indigenous girls through learning and teaching culture, language, dance and ceremony, and has a PhD in how Aboriginal people connect to country, off country. Please welcome Dr. Mandy Nicholson and the Jiri Jiri.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see, I've got a fire going up here. We're taking it down, we're out in the bush, and we're smelling bush through this fire. But there's a reason I've got the fire here. Smoke alarms are off. But it's a really important gesture from us, being the traditional custodians of this place. So who is from Australia in the audience? Lots of people. Anyone from overseas? Oh, there's quite a few. I heard an American over there somewhere. And I really like to know that when I talk, because even though, like, we live in this country, sometimes the cultural narrative of a place that you've lived at or you've been born, like lived forever, you don't quite have access to the knowledge of the First People. So it's really good when I understand that you're from here, but also from visiting from other countries. So you may be familiar with certain religions and spiritualities around the world. They use smoke as a cleansing. Same here. So when we welcome people to country, it's all about giving back. So what I mean by that is, by us gesturing that you're welcome here, you've got to give back in terms of one word, really, is respect. So respect for self, respect for others, and respect for country. So then we can share that journey of looking after country together. And when I welcome people, it's a little bit like I go into more depth than maybe the usual welcome that you've been to before, because I like to discuss where and how we fit into the world in a modern world with an ancient culture in a modern world, because it can easily be sort of overshadowed in day-to-day life. So when we have finished our session this morning, hopefully you'll go outside and do a couple of things that I suggest. And one of them is, I'm not sure if there's any gum trees that are handy, but what you could do is grab a gum leaf, a eucalyptus leaf, and take that leaf and crush it up and then smell it, because the eucalyptus oil inside the leaf is the important part of that gum leaf. And then by you doing that simple act, you're connecting to country. And when I put the wet gum leaves onto the fire, you'll see at the moment that it's sort of a grey, yucky kind of smoke. When I put the leaves on the fire, that smoke will change, and that's the important smoke. Because when we're sick, we use eucalyptus oil or chest rub or a decongestant, And it's something that we've known since the beginning of time has healing properties. It's an antiseptic as well. So you get the gist of why we use our gum leaves is to cleanse, but also to get rid of any bad energy that you might be holding on to, or any bad vibes that might be around you at the moment. You might be feeling really low today. This will just reset the scene, reset place. And it's something that, like I said, has been happening since the beginning of time, but there was a period of time for at least 3 generations in this country and around the world, from around the 1800s, that this sort of stuff, ceremony, proper welcomes, dancing, singing, women's ceremonies, men's ceremonies, they stopped happening. And we all know why. Invasion happened all around the world. But what we've done today in this generation is try to break that cycle of knowledge loss and to bring it back by rekindling our ceremonies. So this is one of them, the welcome ceremony. But also you'll see when the girls come out and dance, and warning, there is a cuteness factor that you won't even look at the adults. So I'll leave it at that. And it's all about becoming a woman in terms of your role as a woman in your community. So when girls reach that teenage period of their life, we go through a community ceremony called Murum Turukuruk, and it's coming of age ceremony, but Murum or Maram means body, Turu is the reeds that you'll see the girls wearing, and Gruk is the female suffix or the ending that means it's feminine. And it's a community ceremony, so we do have women's specific, men's specific ceremonies, but this is an in-between one where we get all the men involved in our community to show that they'll protect that young girl as a sibling, even though they may not be related to that young girl. And they wear possum skin belts. So those possum skin belts are basically the same as that term respect, because they are told, or they're shown how to make their belts. They're shown the different ways of making the belts. They're shown, we take them out on country to teach them which reeds to collect for their necklaces, what time of year. But the whole point of that ceremony is to teach them where their place is in the society, in their community. Because as soon as they go through that ceremony, they become a leader. And you can see the change in their faces, in their demeanour, in their stance. They stand much more upright and more proud of who they are because they're given that responsibility to mentor the young girls. And it's something that if they decide they don't want to do that anymore, it's kind of like, I don't want to do culture anymore, and go the wrong direction, we take that belt from them and they have to earn it back. So you can see through those 3 generations of not being able to access our ceremonies, language and dance, we've rekindled that and we've broken that cycle. And you guys all work in the health profession in different areas, researchers, and you're out there for the protection and health of the world, really. So I'm just going to skip back and forth between the fires. So just hold on one sec. We don't want the fire to go out and it doesn't work. So you guys all work in this field that is so important. Everybody needs to have access to good health. And it's something that we've known since the beginning of time as well, because we were the first doctors. We were the first healers. We were the first community binding structure is the health and well-being of our community. And it's something that we try to heal our community, but in a different way these days. We heal them through ceremony. We heal them through knowing their language, rekindling their language, breathing life back into everything that was taken. So in terms of my language that I'll be speaking in, it's the Woiwurrung language. And if you're from overseas, or even if you're not from local area, Australia is quite small compared to the rest of the world's continent in size. But when you think of where we are right now in Naarm, means like bushland in the Woiwurrung language, Victoria is a state that's really small. I think it's it is the second smallest state, because I always forget Tasmania, sorry Tassie. But literally Victoria is quite small in the scale of things, and there's 38 different languages, and that's really wow. But then when you break it into regional dialects, you can double that. There's over 60 languages in Victoria, first languages. Out of those 60 languages, none are spoken every day as a first language. So even saying one word, kirip, in my language means friend, means that I'm keeping my language alive. Over Australia-wide, you've got 250 languages, and again, if you break it into dialects, there's over 600 languages. And I'm sure wherever you guys are from, the original languages aren't just one singular language. And when you can look at language and the diversity between language, you can actually map country. So just referring to Victoria, where we are now, pretty much the whole of South Central Victoria is part of a language family. So we're mates, basically. We share a lot of beliefs, a lot of language, a lot of ceremony, the same creator spirit. So here in Australia, this part of Australia, we've got Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle, so the biggest raptor that's out there. So he watches and guides us in the physical and spiritual form. But the further you go out, language changes and it gets less and less similar, and the creation spirits change. So when you look, I'm sure you'll go back to your hotel rooms and go, "Ooh, what does Victoria look like if you're not from here?" And go and look at the very point of that state. And that language over there is probably only about 10% the same as here. But they have a different creator spirit, which is Boran the pelican. So often our creation spirits are flying creatures, because it sort of like shape shifts between the physical into the spiritual form, and they're already in the sky. So in terms of the spirit creator here, well, I'm going to time myself now and still talk, but what I'll do now is I'm going to put the leaves on the fire, because I time how long I speak to how big the fire is, and you'll see the smoke change, and I'll explain. So instantly you can see the smoke's changed into kind of a misty kind of smoke. And like I said, this is the smoke that has the healing property. So I'm a little bit sick today, so I should bathe myself in that smoke, because when you breathe it in, when you absorb it into yourself, you feel instantly better, and it will fill the room. Sometimes I have smoking ceremonies inside and it fills it so much that you can't actually see me anymore. But it's something that I was gifted the permission to do this. I'm not an elder as yet. Sometimes I do feel as old as an elder, but not quite there yet. But I've been gifted this because I was the one that reinitiated the coming of age ceremony. So I'm pretty, how would you describe me as like maybe a community leader? So we're the type of people that help our elders, because they're pulled in all different directions, and these days their responsibilities are so much more, because we have all these legal entities and legal bodies that refer to land management and things like that. So I will jump back and forth still, because as soon as I hear that crackle, it means it's getting too hot. So I'll be flying around all morning. So in terms of Bunjil, the creation spirit bird, he's up in the stars, and we call that, we've got different layers of country, so that's the most upper layer of country, and it represents where all the stars are. So every single person in this room has a narrative written up in the stars. We may be all on different levels of our journey of understanding that narrative, where when I was a young girl, I knew very little about my connection to the stars. And it's something that was missing my whole childhood and teenage years, was that cultural knowledge, that language acquisition. So it takes one person in your community to make a difference. I taught myself my language by having conversations with myself, but I was lucky enough to be able to work at a Victorian Aboriginal language centre that enabled me to unpack the grammar, the pronunciation, and how to put it together into sentences. And after all, I was doing that for about 6 years, enabled me to create songs. So I started with those, nursery rhymes, how they can be like really dark and about death and dying and sneezing and dying from the Black Plague and things like that. I've never really liked nursery rhymes. Now I know why, because as an adult you understand what they're about. And that's how I started creating songs. Not those nasty kind of ones, but all the jingles that kids know. Translated them into English. And that enabled me to translate songs that you'll be hearing in the audio tracks, because I'm not allowed to sing. I'm really, I've got my clapsticks ready and everything, but I have to hold back. I've got to listen to the doctor. And that's where I began my language journey. But I began my cultural journey as a young baby, young child, but enabling me to grasp more onto it was having language as filling that main void. Because there's so much cultural information that is found in language. So, for example, the word Wominjeka down this way, people often refer to it as meaning welcome, but when you break it into 3 parts, woman is to come from somewhere, G is an instruction of being asked to come, and ka is purpose. So much more culturally important meaning behind that word. So we've got up to star country. So star country, there is a star up there called Altair, and he's the head of the eagle or the Aquila constellation. We have that as an eagle as well, and I know that there's other cultures around the world that also see that constellation as the eagle. And then you go below, so they're all in their spiritual form up in the stars. Their physical form, our creators, we've got Bunjil as well, but we've also got Wa. And you won't forget his name because it's the sound he makes. So you'll see him flying around all over the urban scape, but you'll also at this time of year hear a heap of birds squawking like continuously up in the trees. That's Dun-dun, the rainbow lorikeet. They're beautiful rainbow birds. And you'll see all these other different birds in their physical form. Then you go, that's called Wurrulwurrulbik, sky country. Then you go down one into Murrnmutbik. So if it was windy in here, we can just imagine it's windy. This smoke would be dancing all over the place, making beautiful shapes and absorbing into the plants, into us, into the ground, and also triggering those trees to say to the trees, right, there's a fire coming, and the tree gets like excited and it starts to set seed because it knows when the fire's past, the ground will be fertile for the next generations of seedlings to be growing. And then we've got, and also the wind country also blows our ngulu, or our voice. That means hurry up, Nan. So then we have, he's distracted me now. Then we've got Barnyabik. Barnyabik is the layer of country that represents water. And as we know, water is life-sustaining. Then we've got Bikdui, on country. So on country is where we do all the stuff I was mentioning. We do our ceremonies, we do these, we dance, but we also balance it with our busy lives, making sure our spiritual health is healthy and balanced. Then the final one is Bik Ut, or inside country, and that's where we get the ochre that you'll see the girls wearing on their faces, and also the roots of the plants talking to each other and keeping everything above it alive. So we're going to do 3 dances now. The first one's our Wominjeka Nyarka, our Come With Purpose dance, about being loud and proud of who we are because we were silenced for too long. And you'll hear Ngagaji as part of that, which means hear us. Then you've got the second dance is our country dance, talking about those layers. And the third one is Babandarang, about the mother tree. And I'll come in between the dances to explain them. But I'll finish off with my language. So, Biladu Nyan Wangat Naranik Mandi, Waranjeri Willamik Waranjeri Balakut, Mundanai Murup Galada Birarang, the Yarra River, the beautiful river that flows through the heart of Naarm, Mundanai Liwik Bulok Nugulik, so all of my ancestors I embrace, Liwik Bulok Nuguldan, all of yours, Ba Lalal Ba Gugung Nugulik Ba Nuguldan, so all of my grandfathers and grandmothers and yours, Mundanai Bikut Bikdui Banyabik, Murrnmutbik, Wurrulwurrulbik, Ba Tarangogbik, Ba Bunjalal Willamu. So now we'll be playing the Wominjeka Nyarka, the welcome dance. Hi everybody, my name's Tiawi and I'm just past 2 years old. So the next dance that we'll be doing is the Bik Nyarka. So it's all about those different beautiful layers of country and how we can connect to those. And something else that you can do is you tune out of everyday life, you tune out of that. You want to go to Mum? Go to Mum. You tune out of the busy, crazy city noises and tune into that dun-dun, that rainbow lorikeet, or that wah, the raven, and then you really find that you connect on a much higher level and also take your shoes off. But be careful in the city where you take your shoes off. So this is our Bik Nyarka, our country dance. Oh. Yep, so, okay, yeah, Bik Nyarka, yep. Waranjere, waranjere, narapo, 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 waranjere, waranjere, narapo, 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 narapo. Taranga, taranga pe, punjula. Thank you so much. That's it. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you for including this important ceremony as part of your gathering today. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Mandy and thank you to all of the women of the Jiri Jiri and our little young man for that very warm welcome to the land of the Wurundjeri people. It's a great privilege to be honoured by a smoking ceremony, and I think it gives us an opportunity to reflect upon what a great opportunity it is as we've gathered here on Wurundjeri country with First Nations colleagues from across the region to be listening and learning. As the first carers and healers, the knowledge systems of Indigenous peoples connecting land, sky, water, spirit, family and community have been developed and passed down over millennia. That unique wisdom and these ways of knowing and doing have much to offer us in our modern quest for global sustainable health and well-being. And I encourage you all to take this opportunity to learn from the many esteemed Indigenous leaders who have joined with us over the next 3 days. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Sharon Pickering, our Vice-Chancellor and President of Monash University, to formally welcome you on behalf of Monash University. Professor Pickering is a leading international scholar in the field of criminology with global expertise on border crossings, migration and trafficking. Her work across criminology and higher education has attracted numerous awards, including an Australian Human Rights Commission Award, the Leon Radzinowitz Prize, the C.M. Adler Prize, the International Education Association of Australian Best Practice Award, and the Australian Financial Review International Education Award. Prior to becoming Vice-Chancellor and President earlier this year, Professor Pickering served Monash University as Acting Provost and Senior Vice President, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Education, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Head of Social Sciences and Head of Criminology. She has led major research programs across Europe, Southeast Asia and the Pacific, and has an extensive international experience developing multifaceted research and education relationships with institutions across Indonesia, India, China, Malaysia, the Pacific and Europe. Professor Pickering has a very long and distinguished career, and she has asked me to take out much more of all of the wonderful things she has done. But I'm pleased to introduce, and I know that you will join me in warmly welcoming the wonderful Professor Sharon Pickering.
Thank you, Jill, and I apologise that I edited out half your speech because you all have much better things to do than to listen to that. My sincere thanks to Dr. Mandy Nicholson for such a generous welcome to country, and I extend my respects to all elders here today, but also elders past and present of the Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands this remarkable summit is taking place. I would like to acknowledge the Honourable Assistant Minister Carney here today, the Honourable Minister Thomas, the Honourable Minister Lalam Balavu, Ambassadors Datoka and Copus Campbell, to Regional Director Pia Kala, and I share the first 100-day mark with you all, the M8 Alliance and World Health Summit representatives, esteemed leaders and elders, partners, colleagues and friends. Welcome to Melbourne and the 2024 World Health Summit Regional Meeting. The World Health Summit, as so many of you know, meet every year in Berlin, and then every year there is a separate regional meeting. This is the first time this meeting has come to Australia, and importantly, to parochial Victorians among us, to Melbourne. And Monash is very, very proud to have been given the honour to host and convene the summit. It is, of course, the first time a meeting has been dedicated to focus on the Asia Pacific, and in a very real sense, our focus must be on the Asia Pacific, and it should never ever take this long again to have this focus. The Asia Pacific is the most dynamic region of the world, where cities are growing fastest, where demand for innovation is the strongest, and where the biggest energy and digital transformations in the world are already well underway. It is the region where some of our largest populations are concentrated. It's where so many of the world's health challenges are at their most acute, and it is where climate change threatens the very existence of so many of our neighbours here in Australia. It is here then, in the Asia Pacific, that we have the biggest opportunities to make a positive difference in human health and well-being, and generate the innovations and new ways of working together that all of our countries so desperately need. The next 3 days are precious. They are a precious opportunity to bring together the world's best global health experts and researchers to join with stakeholders from government, civil society, communities and the private sector and advance the agenda for making a healthier and safer world. Importantly, we need to build the collaborations and partnerships needed to actually make that happen. Of course, all of us here know that making it happen isn't simple. There can be no simple answers to improving global health. Not when there is crippling inequality, when there are rising shocks, including climate-induced disasters and public health emergencies, where there are groups whose voices are still not heard, when policy making is fragmented and when global health needs may be obscured by the competing interests among many states. We know the challenges are complex, but we can't solve them by ignoring the complexities. And that is, of course, why we need all of you. The people gathered here today, even those right up the very top there. Experts, innovative thinkers, people with lived experience, people who understand governance and know how power works and how change for the better can be achieved. Considerable thought, planning and mountains of work have been put into this 3-day program that's before us. And I would like to particularly congratulate Monash's School of Public Health and Preventative Medicine for leading the design of the program. I would also like to acknowledge and thank a major sponsor, Vic Health. That's Victoria's Health Promotion Foundation and our major sponsor. Our strategic partners in the Australian Global Health Alliance, the Council of Academic Public Health Institutions Australasia and the WHS Institute, and all our fellow health and academic institutions who have joined us as program partners in bringing this historic meeting together. The program has been designed to focus attention on specific challenges and to foster collaboration to positively address them. It is informed by Monash's commitments to focusing our research, expertise and international reach in the Asia-Pacific on working with our communities to address global challenges and encourage partnerships and collaborations so that we can make change at pace and scale. Many of the sessions recognise that to successfully address the complex global health challenges we face, we need new types of partnerships, different modes of governance, and we need to build intersectional collaboration and engage communities to co-produce solutions. There are no one-size-fits-all approaches. We need approaches that are informed by local communities and diverse voices, those of Indigenous people, of women, of people with living disability and the disadvantaged, the excluded and those who endure discrimination. We have gathered here with enormous goodwill and a deep sense of collective responsibility for the health and well-being of all and for our future generations. The opportunities for us to make a positive difference are very real, they're very tangible. We need to take them. Thank you. I would now like to introduce a pre-recorded message from Senator the Honourable Penny Wong, Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs.
I acknowledge the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri people, the traditional custodians of the land on which you gather, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, and I want to acknowledge the distinguished guests and experts gathered for the 2024 World Health Summit regional meeting hosted by Monash University. It's crucial to bring together wise minds with diverse skills as we face so many health challenges globally. Conflict, economic disruption and new global actors are all putting pressure on health. So too climate change, as well as technological change which has seen misinformation and mistrust thrive. No one country can face these challenges alone. We need to work together. That is why Australia is firmly committed to the negotiations for the Global Pandemic Treaty and to ensuring perspectives from our region are heard, and why we are working in partnership with governments and civil society in our region to improve health outcomes through Australia's Partnerships for a Healthy Region initiative. We want our region to be resilient against health emergencies, natural hazards and challenges posed by climate change. I thank Monash University for hosting discussions here in Australia. It's an opportunity to bring to global attention the reality of health challenges faced in our region. It's also an opportunity to share solutions, innovation and research, and to highlight the unique perspectives and needs of our communities, including Australia's First Nations people. We must do more to hear from diverse voices. This includes women and girls, LGBTQIA+ people, people with disabilities and communities facing poverty or marginalisation. Because addressing equity within and across nations is essential. This summit brings together experts from politics, science, the private sector and civil society. But you are all united in common purpose, to develop innovative solutions for better health and wellbeing for all. So I encourage you to harness your considerable will and share your expertise and work together towards this goal. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce the Honourable Jed Carney, MP, Assistant Minister for Health and Aged Care, to the stage. Welcome, Jed.
Well, thank you very much for that warm welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today on this stage. I really thank you, Sharon, for setting the global and regional context in which we all gather today. I think you really did a great job of imparting the importance of this meeting. Thank you, Jill, for all that you do. It's wonderful to have you here at Monash. It's an absolute credit to you and your former life as a health minister in Victoria that we are broaching all the frontiers that we are about to broach in these next few days at this conference. Thank you so much to Dr. Nicholson, I'm not sure if she's still here, and the Jiri dancers for that amazingly beautiful welcome to country, for explaining the reason that we do that wonderful welcome, for setting the scene also about how First Nations knowledge and cultures must inform this global meeting. I also pay my respects to all First Nations people with us today, to elders past and present. And I would like to acknowledge the many distinguished leaders taking part in this important regional meeting. We've already heard a number of them from Jill and from Sharon, but I would like to also acknowledge the President of the World Health Summit, Axel Priez, by video, our wonderful Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, the amazing and terrific Mary Ann Thomas, the Health Minister for Victoria, an amazing trailblazer, particularly for women's health, and also a very lovely friend. I acknowledge the WHO Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I hope I said that right, Ghebreyesus, Dr. Saya Piakala, WHO Regional Director for the Western Pacific region, the ministers, wonderful ministers and senior representatives of the Pacific Island nations and our region. It's so wonderful to have you here. Special mention to Christina Mitchell and Sophia Zanges, both of Monash, who are the 2024 International Co-Presidents of the World Health Summit. A long list, and I know that I didn't get to say everybody that I would like to acknowledge, and there are so many of you, for example, from Vic Health and the Department of Health. You've all done an amazingly outstanding job in bringing this meeting to Melbourne, the first World Health Summit regional meeting to be held in this country. Hard to believe, but here we are. Now, while that is an incredibly long list of acknowledgements to open this speech, it shows that both people and collaboration is what drives our health systems, our respective nations, and our communities. Now, as we have heard, there are many challenges across our region that unite our experiences, while each nation, of course, has their own bespoke set of barriers. But the flip side of challenges is the set of opportunities that faces each nation as well. From climate change to women's health, from growing a workforce fit to the needs of a nation to ballooning costs and economic pressures. The summit brings together experts and leaders from all sectors of global health to consider the options in science, innovation and policy to address our region's most critical health challenges. And of course, to collaborate, to seize the opportunities. I'm very conscious that we in Australia have a lot that we can learn as well from the nations and leadership around this room today, and I'm very much looking forward to the outcomes of this meeting. When running a health system, there are always competing demands, duplication and inefficiencies. There's difficulty in obtaining the right health workforce. There are areas where a public appetite for change is absolutely present, and there are others where there is not. And in every nation, health inequities, as the special needs of some population groups, simply aren't met. And governments don't have bottomless pockets. I wish we did. And healthcare is, of course, increasingly expensive. All of these challenges are felt by the Australian government, and we are working hard to address them. Access to primary health care remains a stubborn issue in Australia, and we are currently developing and implementing medium to long-term reforms to strengthen this part of our system. Australia's Medicare system, founded by a Labor legend, Prime Minister Gough Whitlam, was introduced in its first form way back in 1975. Just shy of 50 years ago, it was forged with the ideals of universal and free healthcare. And these ideals still absolutely motivate me and our government. Medicare has cared for generations of people, and it has functioned as a safety net for the most vulnerable. We know our Medicare system needs reform to strengthen it and keep it fit for purpose. We know we need to shape it in line with a greater focus on preventative healthcare. Good health systems prevent health issues upstream to save people heartache, to keep them healthy, to keep them safe. And it takes pressure off hospitals and reduces very expensive tertiary care. One of Australia's great health success stories is cervical cancer. We're on track to be the first country in the world to eliminate cervical cancer due to our screening and prevention program. And I know there are some amazing people in this room who have helped make that happen. We know cervical cancer is preventable and treatable, but globally it remains one of the most common causes of cancer-related deaths in women. And through an important partnership across the Pacific region, for which the Australian Government has contributed $12.5 million, Australia is supporting health systems across our region with co-designed programs that fit the needs of participating nations. We're also deeply committed to the greatest inequality in health in our nation by providing better outcomes for First Nations people. Most targets of the National Closing the Gap Agreement continue to be elusive. We recognise how decades and centuries of racist policies have compounded disadvantage, reduced life expectancy, and thrown additional diseases at the feet of First Nations people. It is not good enough. As a government, we are pursuing policies and programs which are led by First Nations organisations and people to address the key factors, including heart and kidney disease, diabetes, and low birth weight babies. Another challenge which faces us all is, of course, climate change. Climate change and health are closely entwined. We have climate change jeopardising the health of so many people in a multitude of new and unfolding ways. And also globally, our health systems are estimated to contribute around 5% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the Australian Government recognises these issues. We've seen tropical diseases shift further south as heat patterns change. We've seen food insecurity increase as agriculture changes and seawater levels rise. And we've seen an increase in the number and fury of bushfires in Australia, which has led to more smoke and more respiratory issues. Our National Health and Climate Strategy, which I've got to say I was very proud to release late last year in Dubai at the Council of Parties, identifies action for the next 5 years, as well as the coming decades. It also identifies how we can support our regional neighbours as they respond to climate change. I'm pleased to inform you that we expect to make an announcement tomorrow regarding an international collaboration that will help to decarbonise the global health system. We need to work together. We need to work together to embed environmental practices in global supply chains. So watch this space. I wish I could make the announcement today, but I'm giving you a heads up on it. As I wrap up, I would like to once again emphasise the importance of collaborations at meetings just like this. The partnerships we build across nations where everyone's perspective, expertise and cultures are heard and respected are the basis for regional change and collective improvement. These relationships are the bedrock of global reform and mutual empowerment. I am a nurse, a very proud nurse, and also a very proud trade unionist. And in the context of this World Health Organization meeting, I absolutely see the wisdom of solidarity, of collectivity, and of unity in guiding these discussions and the decisions that come of it. By standing together, working together, and sharing knowledge, we build a better future and a better community, and of course, a better health system that serves those who most need it. I'm so delighted that Australia is finally hosting this meeting to focus on regional issues and regional solutions. I commend you all for being here. I very much look forward to the outcomes, and I thank you for having me today.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Assistant Minister Kearney, for your wonderful speech and contribution and for framing so many of the important issues that we'll be talking about over the next 3 days. So many of them are clearly close to Assistant Minister Kearney's heart as well, and we bid her a very fond and discreet adieu, as busy people need to go and do busy and important things, and with that kind of passion for the sorts of issues that we're talking about over the next 3 days, we'd like to really support and enable and wish you well as you continue to do great things. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not your only opportunity to engage with Assistant Minister Kearney. She will be joining us again later today in her role as Chair of the National Women's Health Advisory Council, which she established. And the 2024 regional meeting is not only putting women's health issues on the agenda, it's putting women on the stage. I'm incredibly proud to report that 50% of the senior and emerging leaders chairing sessions this week are women, and women, that's worthy of a clap. And women make up at least half or more of the speaker lineup in over 70% of the sessions on the program. And I would suggest to you that 5 years ago at a meeting like this, those numbers would almost have been unheard of. And I think that should serve as a good reminder as we think about intractable and challenging issues. Progress is always possible if we collaborate, if we put our minds to it, and if we refuse to accept the status quo as acceptable. And I know that you will intend to, thank you. And I know you'll bring that kind of passion to your work over the next 3 years. And passion is a fantastic segue to introduce our next speaker, who is our wonderful and much admired State Victorian Health Minister, the Honourable Mary-Ann Thomas. Mary-Ann is not only the Minister for Health, she is also the Minister for Health Infrastructure and for Ambulance Services. And I was just reflecting as I was listening to Assistant Minister Kearney that in this country, we're very lucky to have passionate Assistant Health Minister Carney and a passionate Victorian Health Minister, and to have two women leading the cause to ensure that we mainstream women's health and women's health needs as part of their agenda is a great thing for us to celebrate. If you want to get a sense of who Minister Thomas is, I commend her Instagram page to you. You will see her all over the state, not only representing a beautiful part of Victoria that she represents, but you will see her weekly engaging with health workforce members, whether that's nurses, ambulance, allied health, doctors, community health leaders. She absolutely has a very strong sense of what's required to support the front line of health service delivery. She's been a member of the Legislative Assembly since November 2014. She's previously been the Minister for Agriculture, the Minister for Regional Development, and she understands rural and regional communities. Before that, she served as the Parliamentary Secretary for Health and Carers. She worked for 25 years across the public sector and private sector in areas as diverse as education and Premier in Cabinet. She worked for the National Australia Bank. She also worked for Plan International as one of the world's leading child rights and international development agencies. She brings a big head and a strong heart to her work. Please join with me in welcoming the Honourable Mary-Ann Thomas.
Thank you so much, lovely Jill, for that very generous welcome. What a wonderful event this is. I'm absolutely delighted to see so many delegates here from all around the world. But of course, can I also begin by acknowledging Dr. Mandy Nicholson and the Jiri Jiri dancers. As Mandy herself said, she is a community leader of the Wurundjeri people, and it's the Wurundjeri lands on which we are all gathered today. And I want to pay my respects to leaders like Mandy, to all elders, and can I take this opportunity to acknowledge all First Nations people who are joining this wonderful summit here today. And reflecting on the Jiri Jiri dancers and Dr. Nicholson's presentation, I thought that it was a wonderful reminder of the absolute importance of connection to country, culture and family as absolute cornerstones of health, because without those we have nothing. And while I'm sure we will hear over coming days from many researchers and academics, but if we can just always remember those sort of foundations. Why is health important to us? And it is so that we can enjoy those connections that make life matter, give us all meaning. There are very many distinguished guests and presenters here, but I should also, it's obviously incumbent upon me as a minister to acknowledge some of those. My good friend Jed Carney, who's had to leave us, the Assistant Minister for Health and Aged Care, Professor Christina Mitchell, who's the Executive Dean of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences at Monash University, and importantly, the 2024 International Co-President of the World Health Summit. Professor Sophia Zungas, who's the head School of Public Health and Preventative Medicine at Monash Uni, and also the 2024 International Co-President of the World Health Summit. Professor Dr. Axel Pries, who's the President of the World Health Summit. Professor Sharon Pickering, Vice-Chancellor of Monash University. The wonderful Professor, the Honourable Jill Hennessy, Vice-Chancellor's Professorial Fellow at Monash Uni. Public health superstar, Dr. Tedros is joining us, Director General of the World Health Organisation, and so many, as I said, so many distinguished guests, presenters and people summons here to the World Health Summit in Naarm, Melbourne. I feel that I've got 4 things to do for you today, and I will do them briefly. The first is to welcome you. As a Victorian Minister, I feel obliged to welcome you to our beautiful state I know that you're here for 3 days, and I know that you will be engaged in a lot of very serious work over that time. But I also hope that you have a great opportunity to enjoy some of the many wonderful things for which our city and our state are known for. Now, let me tell you, we have some of fabulous restaurants, some great wine bars, terrific theatre. Our art gallery is one of the most visited art galleries in the world. And if you wanted to venture further afield, then you're very welcome to my electorate of Macedon. Australians might well know that we are the spa capital of the state, as well as having a number of fine regional restaurants and wineries to boot. That's that first important job out of the way. But what I thought, listening to all of our speakers, I thought I wanted to just come and talk to you about 3 things that are really important to me right now here in Victoria and important to the people of Victoria. And they relate directly to the themes of your conference, with your focus on shaping the future of health across Asia and the Pacific, including achieving equity within and across borders. Here in Victoria, that translates as a single-minded determination to do more for 51% of the population, that is the women and girls of Victoria, for whom and for too long their health needs have been overlooked, underdiagnosed. Women's health concerns have not always been believed or addressed appropriately, but a little bit more of that in a moment. And secondly, to do the work that is necessary to close the gap when it comes to the health outcomes that are being experienced by our First Nations people when they are compared with non-Indigenous Victorians. So if I go back to women's health, 2 key areas of focus right now here in Victoria. We have launched a Australian leading inquiry into women's experience of pain. The Premier and I launched this earlier this year. We conducted a preliminary survey which told us that 4 out of 10 women in Victoria are living with chronic pain. 50% of those women told us that that pain was associated with condition or with experiences like menstruation, menopause, but also conditions like endometriosis. Apparently it takes between 7 and 8 years for endometriosis to be diagnosed. That is simply unacceptable. What women told us when it came to their experience of pain was that too often they were not believed when they spoke with their healthcare practitioners. Women were told that their pain was in their head. Women told us that they were being treated for mental health conditions, but the underlying cause of their poor mental health, which was the pain that they were experiencing, remained undiagnosed and untreated. For me, one of the most profound, and it's just stayed with me, comments from one of the women that participated was when she said, I just want to get off the merry-go-round of antidepressants and iron infusions. It is time to take women's pain seriously. It is time to listen to women. It is time to believe women when they present with pain. Now, there's many, many reasons why we know so little about some of the both the experiences and the conditions that women are afflicted with, and we know, of course, that it's because women have not had the same degree of research conducted on us. We're not that well understood. Am I right? I mean, we're not that hard to understand, but you've got to put a focus on us. And we must be treated with dignity, care and respect, and we must be believed. So women's pain is something that our government is really focused on. A second area of attention, and I know I take this lead from my former colleague, Jill Hennessy, is ensuring that the women and girls of Victoria continue to have access to safe abortion care. We know that around the world, abortion care is under threat. So it's important that in a country such as Australia, in a state like Victoria, that we continue to champion access to abortion care. I want to acknowledge again the leadership of Assistant Minister Carney for the work that she has done ensuring that she has unwound some of the impediments that were in the way for women across Australia to access medical termination. So I congratulate Jed for that work. Our government is doubling the number of sexual and reproductive health hubs across our state. We are opening 20 women's health clinics. Those health clinics will be staffed by gynecologists, urologists, physiotherapists, psychologists, and will play a really important role in giving women's health care the attention and focus it needs and deserves, as well as ensuring greater access to long-acting reversible contraceptives and to medical and surgical termination, because we cannot make real inroads into women's health care unless we have secure access to reproductive choice. Now, finally, when it comes to our First Nations people, we know that we have a lot to do here in Australia. We have a program for those international guests focused on closing the gap. Closing the gap has been now with us for some time, and to be frank, the results to date have been disappointing. Here in Victoria, our government remains committed to every element of the Uluru Statement of the Heart, that is voice, truth and treaty, because unless we put... Thank you. Because unless we put Aboriginal health into Aboriginal hands, we will not see a difference in the outcomes. So I'm proud of the work that our government is leading and is doing, recognising that there is more to do. In the health sector, this presents itself as a commitment to a Victorian Aboriginal Health and Wellbeing Partnership Agreement and Action Plan, a partnership that I co-chair with the leaders from the Aboriginal community, the Victorian Aboriginal Cancer Journey Strategy and the Victorian Aboriginal Health, Medical and Wellbeing Research Accord. At the heart of it, the only way that we will see a change in outcomes for First Nations people in our nation is when those of us who have held power for so long give that power back to First Nations people. That means we have to give up some power. We have to cede power to our First Nations people to enable them to take control of their own destinies. So I will conclude there, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this extraordinary World Health Summit. I'm delighted that it is here in Melbourne, Naarm, Australia for the first time, and I'm sure that we look forward to welcoming you back sometime in the future. Thank you very much.
Well, fantastic. What a fantastic address from Minister Thomas, who really, I suppose, threw out a call and led by example around examining structural inequality, what that does for the experience of healthcare and wellbeing, both in respect of women and in respect of First Nations people in Australia. And these are themes that continue to challenge us and inevitably will be part of the dialogue, reflection and plans for action that come out of this summit over the next 3 days. Because one of the key challenges that will be explored this week is how we can create and strengthen connections within the global health community in different manifestations and in different ways, but we all face the same challenges, and so those global connections are going to be absolutely critical. And it is the mission that sits at the heart of this World Health Summit as a unique international strategic platform for global health, bringing together stakeholders from science, from policy, from civil society, the private sector, from all around the world to set the agenda for a healthier future by inspiring innovative solutions for better health and well-being for all. And making sure that we focus on the all is a critical part of the focus of our discussions over the next 3 days. And that's why I'm particularly delighted to introduce the President of the World Health Summit, Professor Axel Priess. Professor Priess has held the role of President since January 2021. Now, if you throw your minds back and think about what was going on in January 2021, oh, what a time to be alive, thought Axel inevitably as he took up the reins. Until the end of 2022, the Professor of Physiology was Dean and member of the board of Charité University in Berlin, the largest university hospital in Europe and one of Germany's most research-intensive institutions. During his 8-year tenure, Professor Priess was instrumental in reforming teaching and establishing new courses of study, such as public health and wellbeing, as the founding of their Centre for Global Health. And before his appointment as Dean in 2015, Professor Priess was the Director of the Institute of Physiology. Please join me and please welcome from Berlin, Professor Axel Priess.
Yeah, Jill, thank you very much for the kind comments. And yeah, I could survive it, the start at the World Health Summit during the COVID times, and we were quite happy that the strength of the worldwide global health community during these times even increased. And I would like to start my address by coming back to what Mandy Nicholson showed us here, so at least for me very impressively, if you look at the world, and she was talking about the languages in Australia, the world is extremely rich and diverse and has an extreme beauty which is beyond comprehension. So an individual human cannot grasp the different perspective in different regions, and we have to treat them with a lot of respect and support to keep these different viewpoints and traditions and languages alive. But on the other hand, we sit together here, and I think that's also telling something. We are not only in these diverse entities caring for ourselves, but we are here together because despite all the cultural richness and heritage, we have some common wishes, and one of the strongest common wishes is the wish for health. We all want to be healthy, irrespective of where we come from, and we may not understand the different languages and know the details of the different traditions, but we know that we share a common humanitarian wish for a good life, for a healthy life, and that brings us all together. And I think we have a lot of responsibility here to strengthen this common approach. We are living in times which are seeing increasing international tension, increasing diversity and fight about approaches. And I think health is a unifying approach. And this community here is, everyone sitting in the room is aiming to foster health, and therefore we should spearhead multinational, international cooperation to allow people with all backgrounds on the world to live a healthy life. And therefore, I'm extremely happy to be here and to greet you all, dignitaries, friends, supporters of global health. And I'm looking forward to the next days here where a number of very relevant global health topics will be addressed. And another thing which I take from my previous speakers, Sharon was alluding to that. This meeting is the first one in Australia and the South Pacific, and we shouldn't wait for another 15 years or so to come back. So we need to establish mechanisms to keep the momentum from this meeting alive during the next years. And while the relevance of this meeting is underscored by the presence of so many outstanding delegates and officials, my very great thanks go to the team of the Monash University and the support of the state, but obviously Christina Mitchell and Sofia Zungas as the international presidents have to be thanked as the leaders of these teams. When we look forward to the meeting itself, there will be a huge plethora of topics, all with a regional focus, but I'm very, very happy that one of the main themes will be the area of indigenous people's health. And there's no better place than here in Australia to address this topic, and I would be very happy if this would be carried on in the future. And as I said, the issue of health is something which brings us all together, and it unites us, and we should also be united in our work for better global health coverage. And to do that, obviously, we need very strong international cooperation, like we see it here, but also we need very strong international organizations like the World Health Summit and the World Health Organization. The World Health Summit itself has developed over the last 12 years and is now increasingly global. It has the M8 Alliance is composed by 31 members from all regions of the world. And obviously, we also need very strong partners. And one of the strongest and most relevant partners for the World Health Summit is obviously the World Health Organization. And we were very, very proud to co-organize the 2022 meeting together with the World Health Organization. And I'm very proud to now introduce to you the video address of our good friend, Dr. Tedros. It's easier to just take the first name and not run into the pronunciation problem. So our very good friend, Dr. Tedros, will now address you via video. He can't come today, but we are looking forward to his address, and he's really supporting the meeting full-heartedly.
Honorable Assistant Minister Kearney, Honorable Minister Thomas, Vice Chancellor Professor Pickering, Professor Price, dear colleagues and friends, it's an honor to welcome you to this regional meeting of the World Health Summit. I thank the Australian and Victorian governments and Monash University, a founding member of the M8 Alliance. This is the first regional meeting to focus on Asia and the Pacific. The three health-related themes you have chosen to focus on, communities, the climate crisis, and geopolitics, resonate strongly with the issues we're working to address at WHO. Let me highlight some of our key works. On communities, WHO is spearheading the development of a global plan of action to improve health outcomes of indigenous peoples. We are also continuing major cross-cutting efforts to advance gender equality in health and to increase access to sexual and reproductive health services, especially for vulnerable populations. On climate, WHO and partners launched the Alliance for Transformative Action on Climate and Health via Touch. This supports countries, including small island developing states, to make their health systems more resilient to climate threats and works to reduce unnecessary carbon emissions from healthcare. And on geopolitics, WHO's member states are now working on an international agreement to address the gaps and challenges all countries face during the COVID-19 pandemic, to address inequities and make us better prepared for the future. WHO strives every day to strengthen health systems, to make the world safer and more resilient against pandemic threats, emergencies, and the climate crisis, while working to support communities to improve equity and achieve our shared goal of health for all. I thank you, and I wish you a productive summit.
Well, thank you so very much, Axel, and what an honour it is to hear from the Director-General, a man with so much time on his hands. So we are very, very grateful that he dedicated some to send us that very important message. And the partnership with the World Health Summit and the WHO is one that we hope continues to strengthen and grow for the benefit of all who work in this sector. And we thank you and the leadership team in Berlin for your work in supporting this and the many other high-level strategic collaborations you have built over the last 15 years. On that note, I would again want to thank our many sponsors and partners, our regional mobility and sponsoring partners who have provided travel support to ensure that a strong representation of colleagues from across the region were able to attend and participate, our program partners, the George Institute for Global Health, CSIRO, Deakin University, EMBL Australia, the Burnett Institute, and the Australian National University. Our strategic partners, the Australian Global Health Alliance, CAFIA, the Council of Academic Public Health Institutions Australasia, and the Lowitja Institute. And of course, Vic Health, our state's peak health promotion body and our major events partner for this 3-day regional meeting of the World Health Summit. Now, when one is putting on a summit, seeking the support and partnership of partners and sponsors is always a little challenging, and like all places, everyone is having to make sure they make responsible and strategic budgeting decisions. And we are very grateful that Vic Health came on board with their support very early in the planning for the meeting, and they've worked very tirelessly with us to deliver a huge program of events. So it is my great pleasure to introduce the CEO of Vic Health, Dr. Sandra Di Meo. Dr. Di Meo is a medical doctor, and I must say a distinguished alumni of Monash University, and a globally renowned public health expert and advocate. Dr. Di Meo was previously a medical officer for non-communicable conditions and nutrition with the Department of Nutrition for Health and Development at the WHO, and CEO of the EAT Foundation, a science-based global platform for food systems transformation. He's published 30 scientific papers, more than 90 articles, and has a passion for conveying accurate and important health messages to communities in an easy, accessible, and tangible manner. Dr. Di Meo came to particular prominence amongst the broader mainstream Australian community during COVID lockdowns, as he encouraged us all to make pancakes on the weekend for our breakfast. And I have a particular shout out to his ricotta pancake recipes he generally shared. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming Dr. Sandra Di Meo.
as the time went on, I was starting to get a little nervous about how you were going to introduce me. Good morning. I too would just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're on here in beautiful Naarm, Melbourne, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation and elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge any First Nations leaders in the room. And of course, the incredible Dr. Mandy Nicholson, who I've had the pleasure of meeting many times now, and her troupe of Jiri Jiri dancers who inspire me every time. But I think it's important as we open today and we say our acknowledgements of country that these words never become just words that we espouse or repeat, that we do take a moment today as 1,250 health leaders come together to reflect on our role and our responsibility in working as allies alongside, within and behind Aboriginal communities across our great state, across this wonderful country and across the world, as we work towards fairness, truth-telling, and ultimately for Victoria very soon, and hopefully one day Australia, a pathway to treaty. And I'm going to echo the words that Mandy actually talked about as she reflected, and I want to again pay homage to the lands, the unceded lands of the oldest continuous culture in the world that we stand on. She talked about the inextricable and long-time link, the ancient link between health, community and First Nations knowledge, that health, the community binding power of health, she framed it. Distinguished guests, Professor Hennessy, Honourable Jill Hennessy, Professor Pickering, Assistant Minister Carney, of course our wonderful Victorian Health Minister, Mary-Ann Thomas, Professor Priez, Dr Sire, Ambassador Datoka, Professor Mitchell and so many others. We've been in this room for a while now listening to people welcome us, but I just want you to all kind of take a moment to look around you and reflect on where we are. We're sitting in a room, an incredible room here at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre with 1,200 colleagues passionate about health and so deeply committed to the next 3 days and making true progress on health and fairness. And reflecting not just on how fun it is to get the band back together after 4 years and so many familiar faces and people connecting did for a moment seem like the opening credits of Love Actually out in the foyer this morning. We just needed that sort of music playing in the background. But also the enormous responsibility. You know, these meetings don't come without carbon. They don't come without time away from our loved ones. They don't come without time away from our communities. And so these days can't just be hollow words or yet more commitments, but really, truly a turning point for action. When Monash came to Vic Health about 6 months ago now and requested partnership, explored partnership around this, the World Health Summit, we were very proud to be able to amplify and reflecting the important responsibility we have, being entrusted with Victorian taxpayer dollars, to put a contribution towards this really important meeting. And we felt that it was a great return on investment for Victoria for 3 critical reasons. The first is that global health has never been more urgent or important. We live in a world of converging crises, polarised, fractured landscapes, an unacceptable lack of progress on so many commitments, and of course, questioning of even the concepts of truth and trust. But we also know, coming out of the last years of the pandemic, learned hard ways and good, and maybe through a few pancakes, that collaboration and shared learning is key. That many challenges that we address, we need to be lending insights across sectors, across communities and across geographies more. We also know, and most importantly and proudly, and I do again want to give a shout out to the important leadership of the Victorian Government, that global solutions always start local. And that Victoria has a very proud and long history in global leadership in health and public health. Whether it's our constellation of world-class institutions, including Monash University, but also our infectious disease institutions, including the newly established Australian Institute for Infectious Disease, our health tech innovators, or our countless ambitious, progressive governments that have had and always will have a strong sense of fairness. In fact, it was out of a strong sense of fairness and innovation that Vic Health was established 37 years ago as the world's first health promotion foundation. An organisation founded by governments in the late 80s who saw the opportunity to increase tobacco excise by 0.5%, take that appropriation, protect it, and give it to an independent foundation focused on addressing the long-term difficult structural barriers to good health and fairer health outcomes. And we've been here for 37 years since, and inspired more than 30 similar organisations around the world to be established. So we're proud to be part of the incredibly rich web of global health here in Victoria, and we're incredibly proud again to be making history this week as we partner on the World Health Summit. Finally, it does take a village to raise a summit, to put on something this ambitious and important. And I do want to acknowledge all of those that have made today possible. Of course, the incredible Professor Sharon Pickering, the wonderful Professor Mitchell and Zungas, but I also want to give a shout out to Rhiannon, to the entire team who have been running around for many months to make this possible. We are so privileged. This is such a huge responsibility, but we're going to have a wonderful 3 days, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sandro, and thank you to all of the dedicated Vic Health team that have worked so tirelessly in the lead up to today with the wonderful Monash team as well. It's almost time, but not quite. We've got one other fantastic speaker for you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Professor Christina Mitchell, AO. And Professor Mitchell is the co-president of the 2024 World Health Summit. And Professor Mitchell she's kind of part of the highly revered tectonic plates of medical education in the health system in our country. She's a highly accomplished health and medical research leader and a physician scientist specialising in clinical haematology. In 2011, she was appointed the first female Dean of Medicine of an Australian group of 8 university. She now heads the largest faculty of medicine in Australia, Monash University's Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences, with over 18,000 students from 65 countries across 10 institutions. It's no walk in the park, but she does it brilliantly. Under Professor Mitchell's leadership, the faculty has risen in global rankings across clinical medicine, public health, psychology, nursing, and pharmacology, with numerous disciplines now in the top 30 in the world. Professor Mitchell shares the international co-presidency with the wonderful Professor Sophia Zungas, who is here with us this morning as well, Head of Monash Public Health and Preventative Medicine, and they are sharing the load at this meeting. You will hear tonight from Professor Zungas. She is going to be addressing you at the welcome reception, and for those of you, she will be very, very well known to you. But for now, please join me in welcoming the wonderful Professor Christina Mitchell.
Thank you so much, Jill, for that very generous introduction. As the 2024 International Co-President of the World Health Summit and Dean of Monash University's Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences, I too would like to welcome all speakers and delegates. I'd also like to thank all speakers at the opening ceremony that has marked the occasion and set the tone for this highly collaborative meeting. I'd also very much like to thank the wonderful Jill Hennessy for emceeing today. It is a true inspiration to see the global health and community leaders come here to Melbourne today. But as with my Dean and academic hat on, I'm also thrilled to see also the leading academic leaders in this country and internationally, and the world's experts so embedded in the program. Monash University set out
a collaborative environment for setting the program, and we're very grateful for other great Australian institutes, academic institutes such as the George Institute, CSIRO, Deakin University, Australian National University, the Burnett Institute, the University of Melbourne, Amber Australia and Vic Health, who have shared the work with us to establish the program and bring great speakers to Melbourne. We also acknowledge the support and input of Monash University Malaysia, Monash University Indonesia, M8 Alliance members and the World Health Summit team in Berlin, who helped us and guided us put the program together. You will see as you enjoy the program and experience the next 3 days that there are change makers from universities and institutions from Australia, the region, and health service leaders from across the world. We are seeking ongoing collaboration and change. Monash University is committed to improving the human condition, reducing preventable diseases, and tackling the systemic changes that are needed to build a sustainable and equitable healthcare system. Now, you will see an army of young volunteers here today wearing white T-shirts with WHS on them. They are our future healthcare leaders. They're the undergraduate and postgraduate students at Monash University who are in training in health. We've also included many volunteers who are early and mid-career researchers who are working as rapporteurs across each session. They want to say hello to you, they want to talk to you, they want to learn from you. So please reach out so that we have a true collaboration going on with our earliest and youngest health leaders of the future. We are your hosts and we're here to help you make the most of the next 3 days. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask anyone for help or where do I go for the next session. The sessions, there are 40 of them, there are 200 speakers, 1,200 delegates, and a clear signal of the recognition of the importance of the challenges we face and that we can do it together. There are large delegations from interstate, regional areas, international visitors, and I think that the whole collective of having rural, remote, regional, international and national together, we can solve many of the issues that we're facing. We're recording all sessions and capturing content so that we can share it to the rest of the world and those who couldn't join us. There are also a number of planned statements and position papers that will emerge from this meeting that will lay the foundation for future collaboration and action. Finally, I would encourage you to keep 3 questions top of mind through the next 3 days. First, what would be possible to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years if we put our collective efforts and minds and brilliance together? What are the strengths we have to build on? And finally, what systems do we need to change or evolve in order to get us there? I wish you all a wonderful, thought-provoking, collaborative and enriching meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you to everybody for being here and for being part of the opening ceremony this morning and to being part of what we hope to be a really memorable 3 days. And inevitably, those of you wearing watches or wearable devices have probably had them screaming at you saying, "Stand up, it's time to stand up." Well, it is almost time to stand up, ladies and gentlemen, to stand up for public and global health and to stand up for collaboration and to stand up for great solutions, and soon it'll be time to stand up for a cup of tea. For those of you that are active on social media, please join the conversation using the meeting hashtags and handles, which are all over the pillars in the foyer. And if you haven't had a chance to download the Meeting Room app, you can do so via the codes on the screen. Ta-da! Don't you love it when technology works? And finally, thank you very much for having me. It's been wonderful to officiate this morning's program with you. I hope you have a fantastic meeting, and I look forward to collaborating with you in the various sessions that we'll be checking out over the next 3 days. Take care.